All right, guys. Welcome to my second topic video that I'm doing. This one I'm going to do on something that's a hot topic throughout, let's see, 900 years, 1,000 years, something like that. And I'm going to promptly not take a side, say both of them are wrong and both of them are right. I think the answer is something different than what people normally face as the answer to the question of, do we have a choice in our actions, or are we predestined to do all the actions that we do? I think the answer is yes, and I will explain. First of all, I don't know who you are and whether you know anything about the Bible, so I guess I'm going to read a little bit of the groundwork for why this discussion even exists. Basically, it comes from this passage in Romans. It says, "For whom he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. Moreover, whom he predestined, those he also called. Whom he called, he also justified. Whom he justified, those he also glorified." Okay, so throughout history, people have been arguing about whether or not we have any choices or the ability to choose, or are we just mechanical puppets, meat puppets in God's play. And there also is, I want to read the Great White Throne Judgment. And there in Revelation 20, it says, "Then I saw a great white throne, and on him who sat on it, from whose face the earth and heaven fled away, and there was found no place for them. And I saw the dead, small and great, standing before God, and the books were opened. And another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged according to their works, by which things were written in the books. And the sea gave up its dead who were in it, and death and Hades delivered up the dead who were in it. And they were judged, each according to his works. Then death and Hades was cast into the lake of fire." This is the second death. "Anyone not found in the book of life is cast into the lake of fire." So here in the Great White Throne Judgment, it says people are judged according to their works. So there is judgment for the actions that we face on earth. And I found the other part of the discussion usually has to do with salvation, whether predestination versus choice or free will usually is a discussion on whether or not someone can save themselves. In Joel 2:32, it says, "And it comes to pass that whoever calls on the name of the Lord shall be saved. For in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem there shall be deliverance, as the Lord said, among the remnant whom the Lord calls." And that passage is quoted in Acts and Romans. Everybody hears it from Acts and Romans, but it's actually a quotation of Joel. A lot of good stuff in the Old Testament. I suggest you check it out. Okay, so you see that people have the ability to call upon the name of the Lord, and those people who call upon the name of the Lord will be saved. You also see them predestined, and you see them called, justified, and glorified, which is the life path of a Christian. You're predestined, you're justified, and you're glorified as the end point, path of being a Christian. Okay. But my response to that is going to be a little bit different. I want to read you first a couple of passages from the New Testament that are, once again, quotations of the Old Testament. And then I want to delve into the verse that they quoted from the Old Testament. And at first, it's not going to seem like this makes any sense. What on earth does this have to do with choice versus predestination. What does this have to do with it? Wait for it. It'll get there. All right. So 2 Peter 3:8. But beloved, do not forget this one thing, that with the Lord, one day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is as one day. Okay. So a lot of people take that as some sort of God's above time. Well, I think it's a little bit more interesting than that, but we'll get down to that in here in a second. All right. And 1 Corinthians 13:12. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know just also as I am known, in the same manner. Also, doesn't seem to have any bearing on the two, right? Okay. All right. Now let's look at the passage that they're quoting, and then we're going to start connecting the dots. So I'm putting all the little dots out, then we connect them, and hopefully you see the little magic picture. Back in the kid, we used to do the connect the dots. So we're going to try and connect the dots today. All right, so it's Psalms 90, verse 4. For 1,000 years in your sight are like yesterday when it is past, and like a watch in the night. I also want to read the King James Version. That's a New King James Version, because to me, when I read the King James Version, it seemed a little clearer, but that's just to me. So let me read the King James Version, and then we're going to get into this passage and how it connects with all the other passages and how it then connects with the main idea. Okay. For 1,000 years in thy sight are but as yesterday when it is past, and as a watch in the night. Okay. For this passage talks about how God views time. Okay. For 1,000 years in your sight are then how God views time. Okay. So that's right here. How God views time is like yesterday when it is past. Yesterday is already gone. So God views time like yesterday when it's already past. So it's already gone. So he's looking out over time from this passage, not inside of time. He's not linear. And like a watch in the night. I don't know if you've ever had the absolute pleasure of working as a night security guard on the overnight shift. It is an absolute pleasure listening to Coast AM and not seeing anything change till it's time to leave for your shift. It all looks dark. The night watch, the thing about the night watch is it all looks the same. There's no changes. There's no time post. There's not, oh, it's midday. It's, well, you can see the moon, but you're not talking about the moon. It's all dark. It's dark in the beginning, dark in the middle, dark in the end. Dawn, beginning and end are the only time posts. The sunrise and sunset. So it's like a watch in the night. This is David saying this, remember. So David was a shepherd, and for him, the watch in the night would be something he'd also be familiar with as having to watch his sheep in the night. So, okay. So what this passage says is that God views time differently than man. Okay. For 1,000 years in your sight are like yesterday when it is past. Okay. So just from the passage, I want to draw something real quick. All right. Here's a line on a piece of paper. Here's us living on the line. There's a little circle. There's God. Can you see that? We are on the line. God's not. He's outside of it. He's looking out over everything that's happened at the same time. Now, granted, I watch a lot of science fiction movies. I remember this concept came to me from, obviously not a Christian movie. It was called Donnie Darko. And we're talking about how you have to move in God's path. And the character in the movie is able to see the path that God has him go. And he's going to go time travel through God's path. Okay, so it just caused me to think about, oh, well, God has a path in the life where we have ability to change. And how does God look at things? And, oh, well, let's think about all sorts of weird things. That's cool. It's cool to me. But yeah, I started thinking about those ideas from that weird movie and kind of weird premise it put together. Okay, so let's go back and then talk about these other two passages in the New Testament, and then we'll go back to the whole choice versus no choice thing. Okay, so we're tying up the last dots, and we're going to put them all together. Okay. It says, but beloved, remember this, that one day with the Lord is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is one day. So it's all the same. Apparently, there's no difference between 1,000 years and one day from 2 Peter 3:8, okay? And that's for us if we're with the Lord. 2 Corinthians also says the same thing. It says, for now we see in a mirror, but I have to explain it. Okay. So now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. But now I know in part, but then I shall know just also as I am known. Okay. Let's go back to our beautifully drawn example of a circle with a line and an X. Okay. So we're linear creatures. We live on the line. We go one direction, forward. That's it. That's all we do. Here's all of time. Here's the Lord. If we are with the Lord, one day is as 1,000 years, or 1,000 years is one day. For now we know in part, but then we also can look on this to know just also as we are known. Okay? So when we're with the Lord, we're not in this linear time frame anymore. Okay. So now that all the dots are out there, let's connect the dots. Okay. So we see that when God looks down at the line, it's already complete. It's yesterday when it has passed. He looks down and he knows who is going to be justified. He's already chosen who's going to be justified. He's chosen who's going to be glorified. He's chosen all these people. These people, he already knows what they're going to do. He knows the end of it already. He looks at it and sees it all. We're not God. We are bound by the linear construct. Linear, line, straight line. Okay? God, not linear, outside of time. So we just talked about that from Psalms. God's outside of time. He's not linear. We are. Our perspective, our choices are very real. We have the choice. Otherwise, how God is judging our choices in Revelation 20. We all stand before God and are judged by our choices. And he knows from Joel, Acts, Romans, that those who call on the name of the Lord will be saved. Is there any question? No, there's not, because all he has to do is look at the little line. He goes, well, Joe Bob, well, I give my son for Joe Bob. Is Joe Bob going to endure to the end and be saved? Let's check. All right, let's check the line. Oh, yep, Joe Bob's going to be saved. Great. He is predestined to be saved because he's God. He ain't over here. He over there. Okay. Do you love my props? Very, very sophisticated. Okay. So our point of view and God's are completely different. We have to understand that we are predestined and our choices matter. Predestined and our choices matter at the same time. Because we're not God and God's not inside of time. So that's connecting all the little dots. I hope you don't break out the matches in the lighter fluid. Because I'm not very flammable. So thank you very much for listening to me. I kind of had fun with this. I like to just prepare and give it just as it goes. So it's all real. I don't edit this. I just post it up. I look forward to seeing your comments. And if you would share these with your friends on Facebook or something, I would like to get more views. I'd like to be able to share this with people. I hope you found it interesting. Thank you so much for joining me today and have a wonderful day.